Evolutionary.org presents Evolutionary Hardcore Podcast with your co-hosts, Steve from the American Underground and Mobster from the UK Iron Den. Get ready for the most hardcore and underground info in the industry. And here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6.
Evolutionary.org Hardcore Podcast coming away. This is episode 143. Today we're doing Bradley Martyn, Steve Smee here, and the Mobster joining me from across the pond. How you doing, man?
All good. Let's go.
Let's hit this guy. So Bradley Martyn, he's a famous American social media fitness star, bodybuilder. He's got 3.7 million followers. I think between all his social media, he's probably got the biggest followers of all the guys we've even talked about on this podcast so far. They're also well liked. He seems to, on his social media, post a lot of stuff, you know, with his dog. Of course, he's got like a pit bull. He's got a big truck. He's got women. But he also does a lot of comedy, little comedy routines. And, you know, it's a lot of lighthearted stuff. There's pictures of him with celebrities like Kevin Hart. He's got pictures, you know, with Arnold. He's got pictures with, you know, different celebrities. Him being in the California area allows him, you know, inside access to all that. So, but he's earned his way up, guys. He's not one of these guys these influencers who got popular the wrong way. He's a legitimate bodybuilder, and he competed for 3 years. First place, 2013 NPC Phil Heath Classic, 2011 NPC Southern California Championships. He's 6'3", 240 pounds, very low body fat. He was born in 1989, so he's a younger guy, younger than Mobster and I, maybe older than some of you guys listening to this podcast. So, but he's worked his way up. So he's not one of these BSers out there. He's walked the walk, he's talked the talk, competed, and now he focuses a lot on his training. And we're going to talk about his training, his nutrition. We're going to talk about his steroid cycles. We're going to talk about the Wfn Scandal, which he was involved in a little bit. So we have a lot to talk about on this podcast. Mobster?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think he's quite probably the most popular, with total figures numbers in excess of, across all the social media, probably in excess of 8 million combined total. I'm fascinated by the fact that he's quite open about talking about anxiety, which has made him a lot of fans. And he talks about how he deals with negative stuff on his social media and gets those people to come around. And he's even talked about, and this is something that seems to come up on the forum quite often, and it may well be related, of course, to his steroid use, the fact that he's losing his hair. You'll very rarely see a picture of him now or video of him without his baseball cap on. But he has taken it off. He has addressed it. So for you guys out there with potential for male pattern baldness, Bradley Martyn may be worth listening to, because he has addressed this in conversation. So as I said to Steve in the pre-show, I think he's very much a professional social media star, as we talked about, but equally he talks about keeping it real, being honest, and trying not to go down the route of a fake persona. And we see a lot of that. And in fact, we've talked about it in previous podcasts with the guys with the manipulated photographs, the pretense of a fantastic lifestyle, etc., etc. He's also somewhat what we might call living the dream. In terms of most bodybuilders, certainly a good majority of bodybuilders, he's ended up with that gym, the zoo. So we're talking about a gym that is kind of like, my social media has enabled me to do this, and then he'll show you a 20,000 square foot space full of the equipment. He gets to live the lifestyle, collaborate with people like Larry Wills, Fitness Figure Girls. Steve talks about some of the other people, very famous comedians and movie stars and other athletes. So he talks about, on a Generation 9 video, this kind of stuff is what I want you to do, and look where I am. And, you know, I think sometimes the only thing that you might have to worry about is that he forgets to enjoy it, because it's kind of living a dream. You know, we do podcasts, Steve. If we start doing podcasts with The Rock, we'd be living the podcast dream, so to speak. So Bradley, I think there's pluses and negatives. We're going to get into the steroid scandal stuff, of course, and of course, perhaps that he's used steroids. So there's things there you've got to look at. The whole social media thing can be negative. It can feel artificial. I think Bradley's just got the right balance. And maybe that honesty, maybe that belief that he's doing it right is why we're talking about a fellow with potentially 8 million followers across all these social media platforms. Back to you.
Yeah, and he's living the dream. Woodland Hills, California, which is Western. That's where the zoo culture is. And he opened it back. He opened that place up. Let's see here.
A few years ago.
Quite a few years ago. Yep. And he has the address. It's 6455 DeSoto Avenue, Woodland Hills, California. It's the west side of LA. So he's living the dream, guys. I mean, I think anyone in bodybuilding, you want to be close to the centralized area. That's the place. That is the place to be. South California. That's where the Arnolds hang out. That's where all these guys, big celebrities, hang out. That's the bodybuilding capital of the world. It started with Gold's Gym back in the day, and we talked about Gold's Gym on prior podcasts. But he's living the dream, guys. I think it's all our dream to live in Southern California around that culture, that bodybuilding culture, and that's how it is. You go to the beach, everybody looks good over there. Everybody looks good. Everyone's ripped. That's just the culture, man. You don't see people walking around with guts. You don't see people walking around fat. I mean, people are proud of how they look. So that's the place people go for sure.
Quick aside for you guys. This is one of those bits of fan information. Woodland Hills is, as I was trying to say earlier on, is the address for, or was the address for, the Weider Enterprises headquarters. Joe Weider's office, the one with the statues and the paintings and the top writers and the photographers, is in Woodland Hills. So what a spot. What a spot to have a gym stay. Just probably 10, 15, 20 minutes from the gym by the beach, by driving. And if Joe Weider was alive, man, I suspect we're talking about Bradley going up to Woodland Hills for the head office there. That'd be something, even just a drive-by. That'd be very, very cool. Yeah, onwards.
Yeah, the beach kind of is cold over there because you have the current coming from the north. So that's the only thing that sucks about the beach there, but it's great for surfing. If you've got a wetsuit, it's great for surfing. And on a really, really hot day, you can get in the water, but it's not like on the southeast coast, Gulf of Mexico, the water is warm. The water is in the 80s, even close to 90 during the summer because you have the Gulf Stream. So that's the only downside about California is the beaches are not that good to swim in, but it's beautiful out there. So Mobster, to get into his training philosophy.
I was talking about from the article, which we'll link you to, guys, but I'm also going to think about the fact, as I said, he's done a lot of collaborations with various athletes. So there are stuff like doing some fantastic bench pressing, squatting and deadlifting with Larry Wheels, fooling around in the gym, bench pressing the girls, etc., etc. But if we talk about his actual training philosophy, we're talking about 1.5 hours a session, quite typical for most gym users, and aiming for a 10 rep range for his exercises, which, as per the article, talking about 75, 80%. And this is something we can get into in training articles. Guys, ask these questions on the forum. He says he doesn't follow a plan, but believes in listening to his body. I got to be honest, I think it's probably because of his advantageous genetics. Most of you guys shouldn't do that. You should have a specific training target. You should write your stuff down. You should see where you are. Keep a log on the forums, guys. We support logs left, right, and center. I think one of the things that's probably, he might be at that level now, Steve, and I've been like this in the past when I was competing, when we had different guys coming over to the gym, and I suspect it's true for Bradley, it changes things up. That level of competition, having other people that you want to, world-class athletes come to the gym and doing their stuff. So, for example, we've seen Larry Wills training there, as I've mentioned already. That's going to make you want to squat when Larry is squatting, when Larry is deadlifting, doing strongman type training. And in fact, quick one for you, Steve, they even got like a track down the middle of the gym. And the truck that you mentioned, I believe they did like a thing in the gym with the truck, with a harness, a strongman style training as well. I think it's one of those things where it's going to stimulate you, shows you've got great all-round strength and whatever else. I think it's going to be that sort of stuff where you're not doing the normal thing. So instead of getting on a treadmill, you're out smashing that, doing tire flips, smashing it with a hammer, putting challenges up with other guys, having people come to the gym on a particular day, and if they see you doing what you're doing, joining in. So that's what we used to get in the kind of gym that I was training back when I lived in Gloucester. That makes you train to another level. It pushes you much harder than you normally would. I would be more interested, just from a training philosophy point of view, to seeing what he does when people aren't there. But this other stuff, Steve, have you ever done this when you've gone to a different gym and you've joined in with someone else and done something different to what you would normally do? How does that feel? I think that's what we're getting here for Bradley. I suspect this is the stuff that he really enjoys. The day-to-day stuff, the kind of boring stuff, the necessary stuff doesn't get the juices going. But when someone comes to the gym and the camera comes out, game on, you take things up a notch. And of course, as we said, he's living his dream. He's doing this all the time. Certainly enough to get those videos out and get those likes, that's for sure.
All right, guys, so let's get into his diet a little bit. He's very advanced for a younger guy. And when I wrote this article a few years ago, he's very, very advanced. So now he's even more advanced, I'm sure. But he talks about a lot of intermittent fasting strategies. The nice thing about fasting strategies, you can cut body fat while still maintaining muscle. So that's definitely an advantage. He talks about some things in a YouTube video. So let's kind of get into the 5 little tips he says. He believes in fatty fish versus bottom feeding fish. So he thinks those are more healthy, which they are because of the high omega-3 content. That's something we need more of. We need more omega-3s in our diets. We don't get enough good fats in our diets. We get too much bad fats in our diet. And in the American diet, I don't know how it is in Britain, but the American diet, Mobster, gets zero good fats in the American diet. It's all bad fats. So he talks about that. Talks about quinoa. He thinks it's a complete protein. It has all the amino acids in it, and it's very underrated. So quinoa over rice, he recommends that. A lot of people may not like that because quinoa is a little harder to cook than, say, white rice. White rice is like 15 minutes boiling, boom, it's done. Any idiot can do it. Quinoa, it's a little harder to cook. It's like brown rice. It's going to take longer to cook. It's going to be harder to cook. Next one is bell peppers. He likes bell peppers because they have a lot of vitamins. They're easy to eat and they taste good. He also talks about Greek yogurt. He says it has a lot of protein and you can throw fruit in there and a lot of things that taste better. Obviously, you're getting the raw Greek yogurt. You're not getting the Greek yogurt from the supermarket that's full of sugar, full of preservatives and additives. And the last one we talked about is almond butter over peanut butter because it doesn't grow in the dirt. It doesn't soak in pesticides. So these little tips are actually really good. I like them. If you can just simply do these little tweaks to your diet, you could probably get some good results in the end. So Mobster, get into that a little bit, and then we can kind of talk about his businesses and the Wfn scandal.
Do you know what occurs to me? He's had a very good mentor at some point in his past, specifically when he was training for competition. That's that's the first thing that springs to mind. The second thing that springs to mind is, do you know what? He might actually be one of the more sensible fellas. He comes across in a certain way that doesn't make me think he's a deep thinker or whatever else. But what if he's thinking, do you know what? I'm going to go on this video. I've got 2.5 million, 3 million followers. I'm actually going to research what's good for my followers to eat, and I'm going to give them solid, good advice. Now, you and I both know that typically with social media, this doesn't sell very well. You kind of almost want to have something crazy on there. I'm going to go to the sushi bar and I'm going to have 473 pieces of sushi. Yeah, and that's the great video. I've got strongmen buddies that have done it. Like, I'm going to eat 4 pounds of steak and, 5,000 people watching them chewing a piece of meat. Here he's actually talking sensibles, like he's gone and done some research. He's had a good mentor. He talks about fasting, as per your article, Steve. It's like he's actually got together some decent information and realizes that he's got not only first off is he learning something for himself, but he's teaching you, the listener, good, solid nutritional advice. I mean, that's kudos to the fella for putting some effort in. We could always, the thing that happens quite often with this stuff is we argue over the tiniest details. Oh, you should have it at this time. You should have it this amount. Here he's talking about 5 really good, healthy foods that none of us eat enough of. I'm the only one on that list that I've had this week is Greek yogurt because one of the local stores is doing a Greek week. And I've had quite a bit of it, funnily enough, quite obvious, you say. So it's, you're on a, what we do when we're indulging versus what we should do. And if we're sitting on doing a podcast like this, telling people what is the best deal. Bradley, thumbs up, fella. You've done a good job here.
So let's get into a little bit more about his website businesses, Mobster, and a little bit into the Wfn scandal. We're going to talk about a steroid cycle that we think he would have used.
I'll touch on the website right here. We've mentioned this in a bunch of podcasts before. It's quite simple. Bradley is no different from anybody else when it comes to making a buck out of social media. It kind of, I won't say it's boring, it's necessary. If you want to make some money, guys, and you've got a big social media platform, sell a t-shirt, you know, sell some wrist wraps. One of the things that Bradley does is it does a various different kind of levels of programs and whatever else. And the top end, certainly when the article was written, was $300. I believe it might even be a little bit more than that now. So, you know, there's Bradley Martyn caps, t-shirts, kind of, some of it's cool and was done in a particular kind of way so that almost it could be sold in other stores, which was nice. He was thinking slightly more professionally than other people, not just selling my shirts and my hats and my whatever beanies on social media, but what if people want to take this and put them into their stores? What if people want to take this and put them on into the gym shop in their gyms? So quality gear, nicely done. But again, it's not untypical there. The gym, obviously, one of the it makes money. One of the conversations he says is he's had the opportunity a few times recently in the last few years, certainly since the gym become popular, to turn that into a licensed or franchise type gym. And he says no. He says because almost 100% these things tend to get diluted. You end up with 100 Bradley Martyn gyms, 100 zoo culture gyms, and only one or two are like the original gym. So he says one of his plans for the future, and again, this is in a fairly recent video, is to open maybe 5, 6, 7, possibly 8, but he wants those gyms to be as close to the original as possible. We know, for example, there's only one Metroflex, dirty, disgusting, horrible, but hardcore, and you go there and you train your life over in Arlington, Texas. The same could be argued about the original Gold's Gym. The same could be argued about the original World's Gym. And I think, again, this is an indication of Bradley actually having a professional, sensible, proper head on and maybe wanting to leave something behind. So, again, thumbs up in that particular way, Bradley, because he wants to keep, if he does have other gyms, if people do come to him and open other gyms, he wants them to be like zoo culture is now, not something with just a name on the front and please come in and give me your money. So that's to be appreciated again. Why don't we get onto the Wfn Scandal there, Steve? Do you want to go?
So, yeah, we've talked about this in the past. Wfn Scandal came out of Miami, the wellness, fitness, nutrition. And, you know, to put it simply, there was a source running out of the Iron Addicts gym, which got raided and closed. And they had an office. Richard Rodriguez had an office in that gym. He was arrested, his wife, several others. They were running an illegal steroid outfit, but they made it look legit online. They made it look like we're getting a prescription. It's through a doctor. Everything's legit. But the weird thing is they were selling steroids like Trenbolone, which aren't even legal or pharmacy grade. They didn't even exist. So Primobolan, same thing. It's not even legal in the United States. So how are they selling it? So it was a little weird the way they ran it. It was, and obviously, you know, the government was watching these guys for a long time, compiling a lot of evidence, and finally they went in and they busted them. So the fact that they were doing this out in the open was just completely insane. They weren't even trying to hide it, but I think a lot of people got ensnared in this because they thought it was legit. They thought, yeah, I'm getting it through a doctor. I'm getting a script for it. So yeah, it's legal. But in the end, it all went down. So listen, Bradley Martyn is one of the guys who, you know, who Rodriguez knew personally. And, you know, there's a lot of things about, there was a rumor that some of these social media guys were putting out that Martyn blew up his phone the night before the arrest, telling him to delete all his pictures off Richard's Instagram account. Yeah. So the insinuation was, hey, he knew about the bus coming and he wanted to scrub everything so to not get ensnared in it. So it must have been a really stressful few days if this was true. So yeah, Monster, finish it off. Yeah,
I'm going to address this. One of the things we've given you advice on in the past, guys, and in fact, it has also come up on the forum. This is quite simple. And you kind of understand why everybody ran around panicking, right? So let's imagine, for argument's sake, allegedly that I have purchased or I have had steroids from a well-known supplier of steroids, perhaps even a former sponsor, for example. Now, if the FBI bust down their doors, and they grab a list, names and addresses and stuff like that off sheet of paper, or they hack the computer or whatever. And this has happened, guys. We know this has happened. We've seen this addressed on forums. Then there's a potential for the FBI to send you some sort of letter, or knock on your door, or ring you up, or email you, or whatever, right? And it's never, ever, ever going to be a lovely, pleasurable experience, one that you're going to want to remember in a nice way when you're getting old, right? So the situation was, with the Wfn scandal, quite simple. It was reported that there were a lot of very famous, it's kind of like when they raid a brothel, you know, the local judge is caught with his pants down. So what happened with Wfn was a lot of very famous people, including potentially Hollywood stars and people of name, and of course, social media people, etc., who shall remain nameless for the purpose, but just to be used as a generalization, panicked. Oh my God, that place that I might have got steroids from has been raided. I know this guy. I had a drink with him. Maybe I'd got steroids, maybe I didn't. Maybe I just met him at the Arnold or the Olympia, but now my name's in the frame. Is his name in my phone book? Oh my God, panic, panic, panic. So yeah, I guarantee, Steve, that there was a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, a lot of what the hell do I do's around the time of Mr. Rodriguez's arrest. Quite simple, really, if you think about it. Did Bradley Martyn get arrested? No. Has Bradley been charged? No. Was he potentially maybe a customer? Quite possibly. And the other stuff that comes off the back of this, of course, which is one of the negative things of social media, you suddenly get 47 channels that are trying to make their name, trying to get the traction, trying to get the followers. Oh, let's make a video and we'll accuse this guy and that guy of being involved. We've seen people come and go in that particular area, and it ends up sometimes that they're the biggest bullshitters we know. Steve and I talk about these things from a point of experience, but we're not out there naming and shaming. We're not out there grabbing names off the internet and maybe crazy accusations. So yeah, I can see why this stuff happened, and I can see obviously certain people, if you bought some steroids from a guy one time, he might even just send you some samples. Now your name's on the database. So yeah, it could have well been a huge issue. Bottom line, Bradley didn't get arrested, Bradley didn't get charged. So I suspect it was a question of rumor and phone calls and misunderstood text and all that kind of stuff. Not very nice, not very pleasant, and hell, who knows? Some of those old social media channels, YouTubers, probably got things like that going on in their own past. So how about this, guys? Try not to make traction out of the bullshit that's going on, because it can also bite you on the ass. Back to you, Steve.
So let's get into his steroid cycle that he could have ran. He doesn't, Mobster discussed it. Bradley Martyn does not discuss steroids at all on the social media. He doesn't mess around with that. He's got too much to risk. He's not like he's Joe Blow from Charleston, South Carolina, who can post steroid stuff on their Instagram because they've got 1,200 followers and they're trying to build their followers, or they're going to talk about steroids. No, this guy is huge, and he's got a lot to risk and a lot to lose in the process. So,
huge man.
Let's talk about a speculative steroid cycle. So HGH, 8 IUs a day. HGH is really important in our body. HGH is a great fat burner. HGH is great for recovery, repair. It's great for lean muscle mass. No doubt, if you compete, HGH is part of your protocol. So no doubt he had used HGH. Pro athletes in sports, they love HGH as well. So in bodybuilding, it's very, very important to use HGH. Testosterone cypionate, you can get away with it these days because of AIs. Lots of tests, 1,000 milligrams a week. Why not? Run an AI with it, control the estrogen. Equipoise, 800 milligrams a week. Why not? Equipoise is great. High dosages of EQ, low side effects. It gives you boost in endurance. It gives you lean muscle mass. It gives you strength gains. Why not take it? And then the big one, Trenbolone. Trenbolone from 200 milligrams a week up to 1,000 milligrams a week. You can run it anywhere in between there. One of the best steroids. Well, I'm not going to say one of the best steroids, the steroid. This is the base of any steroid if you compete. I don't care if you're a physique competitor. I don't care if you are a heavyweight, Mr. Olympian, top 10 guy. Trenbolone is a must these days. If you want to keep up with your peers, if you want to keep that muscle, I mean, nothing builds strength and muscle like Trenbolone. You can just look at Bradley and see just the sheer size, his strength and size. I mean, he does 3 plates like he's warming up. Okay, it's like a styrofoam to him.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's no doubt Trenbolone is a huge part of him and any other big meatheads steroid protocol, because Trenbolone is so damn strong. It's so androgenic. It's so anabolic, 5 times more androgenic, 5 times more anabolic than straight testosterone on paper. And in real life, I mean, there's no doubt it does the same effect. It also is great at nutrient partitioning. I mean, you got Trenbolone in your system. Every meal you eat gets sucked into the muscle, and it's just amazing. I used to, when I was running Trend Cycles, I would go work out at the gym, then I'd go have a meal, and it's just like I knew the way Trenbolone worked, but you can kind of feel it. You can feel that nutrition just getting shuttled into the muscle, the way it increases protein synthesis, the way it nutrient partitions, it just takes that food and shoves it into the muscle by force. So, man, if you go on trend and you eat and you train, you can build up like the more muscle of your life, the most muscle of your life, the most strength of your life. So it's a definite must with Trenbolone. The downside is the side effects. So you kind of have to navigate it on and off as needed to stay healthy. So yeah. So Mobster, I'm gonna let you in. What else do you think he was running and why?
I've got a couple of thoughts, and I'll address the products first. The Anavar, the Winstrol, and the Cardarine. If you combine these with everything else that he's doing, and again, this is a suggestion, a speculative cycle, everything he's doing here is low. You're not going to hold a lot of water. You're going to stay dry. And I think it also occurs to me, and I made a note while Steve was talking, was the idea that if he's got, for example, again, I've mentioned the name already, Larry Wills coming in, then they're going to do a massive, crazy strength day, but you know that Larry's not coming for 2 months, then you start thinking, right now I'm 240, I'm dry, I'm 8% or whatever else, but I can change what I'm taking. I can start anticipating that Larry's going to come in and do 8 plates, 9 plates, deadlift, squat, 5 plates, 6 plates, bench press. So I up my game. And of course, this would be Anavar, Trenbolone, as you said already. The tercipinate could be, for example, something that he could run year round on TRT. And again, this is something else that occurred to me as well. If I'm in his situation, with, as I said already, 8 million combined total followers, my whole reputation, my whole thing is going to be based on my look. So I'm going to say TRT all year round, low levels of TESIP all year round. The other stuff's going to come in and out, but specifically it's about keeping him dry. It's about keeping him lean. And I would adjust some of these dosages up and down a little bit through the year, depending on who I'm collaborating with. If I'm doing a training thing with the girls and they're coming in a few weeks, I just got to look clean and tidy. I just got to look ripped. I don't have to do massive weights. But if Larry's coming, someone else that's a strength freak coming, he's had some very high class powerlifters there. I've done collaboration with people from Westside who trained at Westside in the past. So you're talking about strength stuff there. So for example, the Tren is still going to be good for strength. Add up, the Anavar 100 milligrams a day would be more than I would prefer to use, but certainly if I wanted to boost my strength temporarily, just a few weeks of that, knowing that these guys are coming to make sure I'm on point. I mean, I think I've seen him repping 5 plates. Something else that occurs to me, and this goes back to the tissue repair and injuries, would be, again, as Steve's already mentioned, the human growth hormone. Again, it's one of those connective tissue things, going to keep the skin looking good. It's certainly going to help with minor twitch, and I believe he's had a few tweaks here and there, which we've seen again on some of his videos back in the day. And the strong man, the strength training stuff, it can be quite high risk, especially if you're just doing it for a video. You're prepared to do stupid stuff like 6 plates, bench press. We've seen guys doing 5 plate benches on Terrapec. We can see those videos on Instagram. So that's something else. You'll also note the orals that are in there. Winstrol can be taken, of course, as an injectable, and you can even have it as a liquid, not just pills. They're not They don't aromatize. There's not a lot of water in there. It's going to go stay lean all the time. But to combine with the nutritional stuff that we've spoken about earlier on, it's going to be in pretty good condition on this cycle or variants of this cycle all year round. And as I said, if I was going to do a collaboration with Larry Wills, my training right now is high volume. I'd drop the volume. I would drop the reps. And I would, as long as I've had enough time off at my PCT, I would start thinking about doing some sort of strength cycle so that when Larry turns up, I'm ready to rock and roll. If Bradley's not doing something like that, I'd be very, very surprised. So, yeah, there you go, Steve. I can think something else which has occurred to me. I've seen years ago when he first started doing stuff on YouTube, he was sleeping on buddies' sofas. He was sleeping on buddies' floors. And he was even doing stuff, as you said, with the car and going to the beach and whatever else. I believe he had one of the smaller dogs at that particular time. Something of interest to me is this idea, which he suggested recently, that a lot of those people that helped him back in the day when he was poor and started this whole social media thing and was trying to get the gym together, they work for him now. I guarantee he's got someone working for him that does marketing. I guarantee he's got someone that helps him with the nutrition. And I would like to think he's got someone that's helping him with this steroid stuff too, even if it's only how to do it year round and how to do it properly. This is the sort of stuff that we try to put across in this podcast, Steve, when we're giving advice to people. When we do this with forum members, I'm not a fan of people standing on all year round. In Bradley's case, it's a necessity. To get those kind of views, to get those kind of followers, you need to look good. It's kind of something you almost got to do. Same as if you was a professional pro ball player in the States, basketball, whatever, your whole career is going to be based on what you can do. And in this case, what you can do on video, how the gym looks, how you look, everything's based on that. So the idea that I would say stand on year round, not a good idea. Don't do TRT unless you absolutely have to. But in Bradley's case, I can kind of see why it would be a necessity, that you would need to be something. So, for example, I can see him cutting back on a trend at certain times, cutting back on the equipoise at certain times, disciplinate, not being running half as high. But in terms of condition and how to look good and being that particular way on social media, on camera, etc., this cycle is almost certainly on point. It's going to keep him lean. It's going to keep him healthy in terms of his joints and his connective tissue. I would just be making sure that I had half an eye in his case on where I was future. So regular blood test, plenty of full body analysis, go in and get yourself checked out 2-3 times a year medically, making sure that stuff's on point as well. And of course, guys, as we've already covered, eating as cleanly as possible and as healthy as possible to negate. What's not included on this list would be products like M2 Guard, organ protectors, making sure that your health levels, keeping an eye on your blood pressure, keeping an eye on your lipids, etc. So all year round. I think probably, Steve, we're looking at every couple of months or every 8 weeks, going off and going to see a medical professional and getting yourself checked out. Not something that he talks about. And in fact, I'll address that going back to something I mentioned earlier on. Guys, we've talked about this when it comes to steroids before. I don't have a lot of hair on my head. I'm not bald and I keep my hair very short. I go what we call a number one in the UK. It's just the clippers. No bits on them. Just shave that bitch off. So what we see a lot of the time on the forums, and especially with steroids, and including this cycle, speculative as though it might be, oh, my hair's falling out. Now, you've got the option to use a product like N2 shampoo or shave it off. And Bradley's taken his hat off and shown you his head. So another reason why we suspect he might be using steroids year round is because he's going bald. Now, of course, his family might have male-pattern baldness in there, mum, dad, aunts, his uncles, who knows. But I suspect it's a question of the risk that he's played, the dice that he's rolled, take the steroids, look good, do these fantastic collaborations, make sure my health's on point, but oh my God damn, my hair's coming out. Okay, shave it. Keep that baseball cap on, Bradley, and crack on. And one of the things that's kind of cool, and I've mentioned it earlier on, when he's talked about anxiety, when he's talked about male pattern baldness, etc., showing you his hair loss, is he's out there. He's not, there's guys we know, for example, professional bodybuilders a few years ago, Steve, having hair plugs. And, you'll see guys shaving their heads all year round. And in the off season, you might see Phil Heath with almost a full head of hair, Ronnie Coleman with almost a full head of hair. But during the season, when they were taking the highest dosage of steroids, that hair was shaved right the fuck off, man. He wasn't pissing around. So I like the fact that Bradley's out there telling you kind of telling you, if you like, this is what's going on, this is the way, this is the wherever, and letting you know. Let me just one more point here, Steve. I just touched upon already. On one of his videos, he talks about anxiety. Now, there's a potential there, even again with the steroids, because some people might, without him even realizing, which might apply to Bradley. We know guys that have come onto the forums, taken steroids, and they've ended up with anxiety issues. If you're not comfortable, I mean, Steve can address this. Some guys freak out when they're on trend, don't they, Steve? They just don't like how they feel when they're taking certain steroids, and we see it. So it might be an issue. Bradley has talked about having to go down to ER a few times with what turned out to be anxiety attacks. He's been open about his mental health. But talk about, Steve, the issue for some guys when they're on steroids. We've seen this on the forum a few times.
Yeah, so those androgens, even a mild cycle, I've seen this with just testosterone and DECA. DECA is a very mild steroid. It's not very androgenic, but just running testosterone with the DECA and then running an oral with it, maybe a D-bol or something, guys flip out on it. The androgens hit your body so hard, especially if you're new to steroids. And it makes you hormonal, just like a woman gets hormonal around her period or gets hormonal while she's pregnant. And, you feel the same way. So you can't handle your androgens. So when you're newer to these androgenic compounds or you haven't taken them in a while and you go back to taking them, it's going to hit you hard. And some people react differently. Some people, they get extremely crazy. They get aggressive. They get short. They get cranky. Some people they want to fight. They're looking for a fight with people. They're looking for confrontation. Some people, their libido goes sky high. Some people, the libido goes down. Everybody reacts differently to androgens. Some people just can't sleep on androgens. And then also with the hair loss you were talking about, Mom, so I just want to address that too before I let you back in. With the hair loss, the reason steroids mess with your hair is because all anabolic steroids are either DHT derivatives, which are direct DHT effect in the body, or they convert to dihydrotestosterone DHT in the body. So now some steroids like nandrolone, decadrobolin, MPP, nandrolone type steroids, they don't have that effect because they increase dihydronandrolone in the body, not dihydrotestosterone. So they're much better on the hair. But for the most part, most steroids either are direct DHTs or convert to DHT. So when you increase your DHT in your body, you're inflaming your prostate, which is a hidden danger. You may notice you have trouble urinating or something like that, and that may be a side effect. But by the time that comes, you already have a problem. So it's very important with the prostate. But also, they fry your head hair follicles. So when your head hair follicles get fried, of course, your hair starts falling out and it will not come back. If they're fried like that, those head hair follicles will not come back. So that's why you see all these YouTubers who have these fitness sites. It's like they're all bald. Like, what the hell happened here? It's because they abuse the shit out of steroids. They're in their 20s and now they have no hair in their 30s because they fried it all. And of course, genetically prone to it. Being genetically prone to it doesn't help either. So, So, I still have my hair, like, no problem.
Yeah.
So you can tell, like, I don't abuse steroids. Like, I literally do not abuse steroids. I make sure I spend most of the year off of steroids, not on steroids. But these guys, they're on steroids year round. They have to look good year round. They have to be peaking year round. And, that's how it is. And, of course, the more DHT that's in your body, the more effect it has on your head hair and the more effects it has on your prostate. And then you're opening yourself up, obviously, to prostate cancer later on in life. So, Monster, finish out the show with your final thoughts.
I'm just thinking, guys, sometimes you don't realize how much of effect food can have in terms of your mood. The same thing applies to taking steroids, right? Now, we're not talking about roid rage here. We're talking about the ups and downs. We know, as Steve has already said, that there's a plus for some people, and specifically when you genuinely need TRT and you go on it, you go, oh my God, I suddenly feel really energetic, really positive. My decision making is snappy, pinpoint. I'm at it. I'm aggressive. I'm a salesman. I'm out there. I'm kicking ass. I'm breaking sales records and whatever else. So it's a feel good hormone. For other people, It's not so much that it's a bad hormone, it's just that they don't understand that they're going to feel different. It's kind of like, when you've got an upset stomach or you've got a bug coming, you don't feel yourself. So if you are a high testosterone type guy or low testosterone guy, and I flip that around for you, I switch the low test and I give you loads of, I put you on high test, suddenly you feel different. The same thing goes in the other direction. So it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to imagine here that if I'm on steroids year round, in the case potentially of a YouTuber or Instagram star, in order to stay in shape and look good, there's going to be periods during the year where when I'm changing my cycle up, and again, I'm thinking of training, my mood's going to be affected. If I've got any kind of anxiety, it's going to be affected. Hell, going bald's going to make some guys anxious. We've seen enough of that on the forum, Steve, when it's come up. It's perfectly normal if you've got a full head of hair to put your comb through your hair, to brush your hair, and have a certain number of come out every day. I think it's something in the order of 50 or 100 hairs every single day. But when it's literally like I'm in the shower and I can see hair at my feet, when my brush comes away and there's 50 hairs every time I'm brushing, that kind of situation, that would make me anxious if I was that obsessed with it. So guys, there's always going to be potential for side effects. There's always going to be mildly mood operating aspects of taking steroids. You need to be prepared for this. Don't forget to clarify in your own brain the difference between genuine, actual anxiety, which is sometimes perfectly normal for certain situations, and feeling a sense of what feels like anxiety because you've decided to up the trend, as lots of people like to say. Keep that in mind. This is the reason why I'm not a fan of Steve's already said I'm the same. I don't like staying on. I certainly don't do year-round cycles. Never happened. The longest I've ever done is 16 weeks. Most of my cycles are 8, 10, 12 weeks. I take the rest of the year off. There's always those couple of weeks in the PCT. I'm a bit like that. And then it settles down, and then I feel fine, and then I start to feel back to normal. Perfectly normal, guys. But if you can't handle that, if you're, for example, we've had guys come on the forum with anxiety issues before they take steroids. We say to them, go away, address this anxiety, deal with whatever's going on in your life, because when you're on cycle, you might not like how you feel, and we don't want to make your anxiety worse than it already is by recommending you do this, that, and the other. So the takeaway, guys, is address your mental health, be open about it, go and get it sorted, and think, if I take certain dosages of steroids, it might change how I feel. I need to be aware of this. And again, this is what I'm saying. I think the connection with Bradley here is that he has talked about his anxiety. And who knows? It might be when he's up in the training. It might be when he's doing 1,000 mgs of testosterone a week in the suggested cycle week. It may just be that he's on a high dose, gets a bit freaky, his head's up his ass one night, his girlfriend's not talking to him. The next thing you know, he's huffing and puffing, can't see straight, and has to go down the ER. Keep that in mind, guys. So when we talk about stuff, advice that we give you on a forum, we're trying to think of your mental health. We're trying to think of your physical health. We're trying to give you the right kind of, as Arnold would say, the right kind of advices with the view to looking after you in all kinds of ways. Back to you, Steve.
Yeah, and if you've got existing problems, when you do steroids, those issues are going to come out. So if Bradley Martyn, for example, has anxiety issues and Bradley Martyn wants to take a bunch of tren, his anxiety issues are going to get worse. We talked about that a lot. If you've gone to jail for beating some guy up after the hockey game or the soccer game or the football game because he said your team sucked, you've got anger issues. So if you go on tren and then go to the hockey game, and after the hockey game, someone says something to you, you're probably going to get in more fights. So it makes no sense. So you got to run these steroids moderately and be smart about what you're putting in your body, because they work. Steroids work, and they work a little too well for some of you out there. So, all right, guys, that was it, guys. Bradley Martyn, episode 143. We'll have another one next week for you. We're not going to tell you who. It's going to be a surprise. But Mobster is going to take us into the whatever it's called, the disclaimer. So
the disclaimer. Right. So, as always, guys, we're not doctors. The opinions are ours and ours alone. It's our view based on the years of experience and views that we have on these particular topics. The podcasts are for informational and educational purposes only, entertainment too. And the freedom of speech and the First Amendment applies. We do this because we love you guys, but it's not cast iron. It's not carved in stone. It's just what we think.